All right, guys, let's get into it. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you. We need some subtitles. Yeah, I know. We should probably. I would like to have the lyrics on that as well. All I knew is telephone. All right. Let's see. What am I missing in the chat already? It's already pretty bumping in here. Emotional bandwidth. Pretty sure the Coke handled that. Yeah. Poetic courage. Ukraine is claiming to have recaptured territory around Kiev after Russia said it would leave those areas to focus on the east. Yeah, I know. So this is the area here. It was. This was all controlled. This area right here was controlled by Russia or Belarusian troops. I don't think Russians actually went in, but it was the Russians that came from the Belarusian border. And they have been pulling back from this area. And they have now started to focus on this area here, solidifying this, going door to door, getting rid of well, I call them terrorists, like Azov and the Ukrainian army. So this is what we have left here now. Looks like they're starting to slice Mariupol basically in half here now, which will cut off one side from the other. The biggest place right now is kind of I guess it's like a natural fortress. It's the steel plant here called Azovstal, and this is where the last stand of Azov battalion is. And it looks like they're trying to encircle that there now, and also going basically district to district right now to clear out anybody in the residential areas. A few things on that. One thing I noticed here, DW. Ukraine, Red Cross convoy forced to turn back from Mariupol. The International Committee of the Red Cross has contradicted reports that about 2,000 civilians left the besieged city. The aid agency said its evacuation buses and aid trucks had to turn back. So they're crying about that. I think it might have something to do with this.
عند هذه النقطة ما أزال أرى مزيد من سيارات الإسعاف في هذه الجهة تصل إلى المكان هنا على اليسار تصل إلى المكان وربما يعني تنقل المزيد من المرضى ومن ممن يتم إجلائهم من تلك المناطق داخل إربن فعليا.
Right? There's the Red Cross. There's the Ukrainian soldiers getting out of it. Right? And you wonder why they're being turned back now. You wonder why. Right? Now, let's see if I can just really quickly. We still do not have access to Mariupol. Ukrainian Red Cross tells DW. I'll zoom in on this a little bit for the phone users. Whoa, just taking a while. Code your website a little bit better, DW. The Deputy Director General of Ukrainian Red Cross, Olena Stokots, told DW that the aid organization was stopped by Russian soldiers en route to Mariupol on Friday. The Red Cross team managed to reach the city of Berdyansk around an hour outside of Mariupol before they were halted. However, they managed to escort some Mariupol evacuees who managed to escape the besieged city. Let's see if there's anything interesting in with this. They were talking about having, what if I type in humanitarian? One second. Oh, gosh. Yeah. The Red Cross convoy also includes desperately needed humanitarian supplies, which have still not made it into the city. Yeah, like soldiers. Those are the humanitarian supplies that you're talking about, right? And weapons and things like that. Actually, I was reading something. I couldn't quite find it before the show. They would not distinguish weapons and stuff like that from humanitarian supplies when Ukraine was asked about it. So, yeah, that's probably why. And that's a good reason why you don't want to be messing with this stuff by placing soldiers into it. Because then you lose trust, and then ambulances become targets, or they're just not allowed into the area. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? But they're not going to show you this part on the news. Well, I guess this part was on Al Jazeera. I certainly didn't see it anywhere else but Al Jazeera. So they probably, there was a few people in the video that I put out on this, and they were saying it's not an accident. And I think there might be a good point behind that, because they could have willingly given this out through smaller, less watched channels by the West, like Al Jazeera. I mean, we don't really watch too much of Al Jazeera in the West. But the Russians probably picked up on it, and they said, okay, well, we're not going to let you in there. And then immediately after, you get people like DW and the rest of them crying about it, right? This kind of makes sense to me, right? So they do that, so it scares the Russians or makes them paranoid or whatever. They don't let them in, and then they say they won't let in the Red Cross. How could they? They're totally bipartisan and humanitarian alone. Oh, no. Right? Yeah, the Red Cross video, it speaks 1,000 words, doesn't it? Live UA map is definitely biased in favor of Ukraine, as someone was just mentioning there. Indeed. Notice how quickly they took this part off the map when they don't have any real pictures of any of this area or anything like that. But when there was Russian advances, they will wait as much as weeks before they color anything out in red, before they do the red painting. I think that they have a lot more in this area as well. We still have this cauldron area that has barely been touched by UA map, even though there's a lot of sources that are showing us that they have a lot more control of these areas, the Russians do, than what they're saying here. So yeah, don't get me wrong, I don't really like using this as a source, except for the fact that it will make it more conservative for the Russian advance. Bear that in mind whenever you're on Live UA map. I mean, you can just tell by like the news feed that they give out too. It's like pure NATO propaganda too, right? Like pure NATO propaganda. All right. What we're also going to get into today a little bit later is on Alexander Dugin. I get a lot of people saying, that I'm biased towards Russia, and like to a certain extent, I guess you could say I am. I've seen enough lies from Ukraine and the mainstream media and stuff that I feel like it's important for people in the West to counter the lies. So I guess to a certain extent I am. But what I see with Alexander Dugin is troubling, to say the least. We will be getting into him later on, so stick around for that. But I want to get into a few other things as well. First off, let's look at the dollar. There was a little bit of a dip in the Russian ruble today, and that was after the gas cutoffs and stuff like that. They are speaking more about that now, so it will take a bit of a hit. But again, to see this bump, this rise at all happening, I mean, I'm pretty sure they expected the Russian ruble to be down in like, let's see if I can transfer this back over. So right now it's like 100 rubles is $1, more or less, okay? What they were probably thinking would happen with the sanctions, what the West was thinking, was that it would take 400 rubles to make $1 at this point. And I don't know if I could find this real quick. There were some memes that I was seeing all over Twitter. 50 cent meme Russian ruble. I'm sure they would show this right now. Okay. Well, anyways, it would be Putin talking about my favorite rapper is 50 Cent, or as said in Russia, 400 million rubles. Like, they were making memes about this all last month. And from what we're seeing here, we're back to basically the same. It's a little bit less, but when you consider all the sanctions that are going on, it's basically what it was before. Basically. A little bit less, not much less. And especially when you compare it, say, let's see if I can go back to the max. This was Crimea, okay, when it was almost 0.003, or like around 33, 36 rubles to the dollar, and it dropped hard. It went down to 100 rubles for the dollar. But this right now, we're not seeing anywhere near the same as what we were seeing, like the same drop as what we saw back then. It looks like they've prepared well for this, and it might come back to bite Russia, but the West, because this is what basically all that they could throw at Russia, and this is the best that they can do. It's not looking good at all. It's not looking good at all. This is on RT, but you can find this in other places. Don't just trust RT. I'm not saying that anybody should just trust them, but I think that, this kind of gets the gist of it, and it's quite poignant compared to the other ones that try and explain away all of this. Anti-Russian sanctions don't work. Poland, this is the Polish Prime Minister. The recovery of the Russian ruble indicates that the West sanctions on Moscow are not serving their purpose. Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, I probably screwed that up, but whatever, said on Saturday, a large number of states, including all the EU's members, imposed restrictions on Russia after it attacked Ukraine on late February. I must say this very clearly. The sanctions we have imposed so far don't work. The best evidence is the ruble exchange rate. So we have the Prime Minister of Poland that is usually, Poland is probably one of the most against Russia out of all the countries. And they're saying it's not working. What they've done if it hasn't backfired already, it probably will. But for all intents and purposes, what they tried to inflict on Russia with these sanctions just did not work. Just did not work. So looking forward what you guys have to think on that. Also on Dmitry Yakimov's channel, I want to show you when Fox News, Zelensky was on Fox, and this is about the Russian soldiers being tortured. So just listen in on what he says here.
I want to have you clear something up for us, and this is these reports about the Azov Battalion that is said to be Nazi-affiliated organization operating as a militia in your country, said to be committing their own atrocities. What should Americans know about that unit, about those reports?
So Azov was one of those many battalions. They are what they are. They were defending our country. And
so here he is. Here's the cokehead of Kiev, still wearing the same shirt and in desperate need of a shave. The stubble looks good, buddy. That does not. You can't grow much of a beard. But we have him saying they are what they are. Azov Battalion. Just keep listening in, actually, because the rest of it is actually pretty important, too.
Later, I want to explain to you. Everything from all the components of those volunteer battalions later were incorporated into the military of Ukraine.
What did he just say? He just said all these paramilitary groups like Azov have been incorporated into the military of Ukraine. Listen to it one more time.
All the components of those volunteer battalions later were incorporated into the military of Ukraine.
Okay, why is that important? Because they're trying to say that these are just a couple Nazis here and there. But no, they incorporated them into the army a good bit ago now. They're part of the National Guard, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so these are battalions. The Azov Battalion is still going. They're still rocking the Nazi symbols, right? And they're officially part of the Ukrainian army. And that they are what they are, and he's just they're defending our country.
Those Azov fighters are no longer self-established group. They are a component of the Ukrainian military. Back in 2014, there were situations when our volunteers were encircled, and some of them did violate laws of Ukraine. And they actually were taken to court and got prison sentences. So law is above all.
Yeah. And then you just let them all out recently so that they would fight in this war. So how do you like them apples? Right? What does that matter if you took them to court, if you're just going to let them out? What does that matter? Right? So here is Mr. Cokehead of Kiev admitting to you guys that Azov is officially part of the Ukrainian military. They were defending the country, and they are what they are. The torture practiced by the Nazi Azov regiment doesn't at all mention any of these crimes. Just says that they were charged in 2014 before another group, probably Tornado or whatever it's called. But yeah, it doesn't answer the question directly like a true WEF leader, young global leader, right? Doesn't know how to answer a question. Just shoots a whole bunch of rhetoric at you, but because he's too stupid to answer it properly, he has to make up, well, at least come up with other things. And in doing so, he spills the beans on who these guys are. So, yeah, here he is defending war crimes, saying he's defending our country. Great stuff, huh? Great stuff. Let's see. Ultranationalism is strong in the army in general of every country. Yeah, more or less. But when you have stuff like the Azov Battalion rocking the Black Sun and the Wolf's Angle officially as part of their emblem, then we got a much bigger problem than what you might think. Like, it's not in every country that you see that kind of stuff. No, it's not. Like, you will have ultranationalists in there. Yes, you will, of course. But not official symbols taken directly from the, like, Nazi stuff. Like, for example, Das Reich. Oh, I think I spelled that wrong. Yeah, Das Reich. There you go. 2nd SS Panzer Division. Das Reich. So just remember that symbol. Azov Battalion. There you go. There you go. Like, it's plain as day here, okay? Plain as day. These are cult symbols, like I think Lara Logan was saying. They both got it from the same place, but Azov took it directly from German Nazi divisions. They took it directly from it. Okay, the other one being the Black Sun. If you go into Azov, you'll see them sporting the Black Sun all the time. That's what the Nazis did. This is not just something it's in every military. No, not every military is going to find this kind of stuff officially part of their memorabilia or their paraphernalia and stuff like that. Sorry about that. Not memorabilia. No, I suppose memorabilia. But yeah, that is. I mean, can you give me an example of another country that does this? You might have like a high commanding officer that you can find that is nationalist or even Nazi or something like that. Maybe you'll find a specific person, but the entire battalion is based off of Nazi symbolism and ideology. Right? And that's just one. It's not just Azov, okay? We gotta remember that as well. We're hyper focusing on Azov because their stuff is so blatant and so overt, but there's so much more in with Ukraine, Sloboda, Right Sector, Dnipro battalions, Adar battalion, which was since absorbed into the 53rd. But it was still there in 2014 and past that. I think it was up until like 2018 that they were around, right? And these are just a couple that I can remember. There's a whole bunch that I'm forgetting as well. There's a whole bunch of them. Tornado Battalion raped children in front of their parents in Donbass 2014. Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Am I the only one finding it sus how so many Nazis are funded by Israelis and defending a Jewish president whose ancestors genocided Ukrainian? Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to look into a lot of these groups, anyways. You can find a lot of Palestinian groups that are funded by Jews and stuff like that too. The Little Hats as well, right? Little Hats aren't just one big group, right? There's, for example, George Soros. You know, like. The poster boy, the lightning rod, whatever you want to call him, right? He's not allowed into Israel because of his subversive activities and funding Palestine and stuff like that. And then you have the Mossad connection, which plays both sides, right? There's much to it. There's much to it. Well, there you go. That makes it better, says Twitwit. Yeah, for sure. Let's see what else I'm missing here. I know that I've missed a lot of comments. Sorry about that, guys. Al Jazeera swings between being based in global home. It's weird. Yeah, they're globalist for the most part, but they have to stay somewhat traditional for their own base, right? Kind of like Fox News, right? Like Fox News pretends to be anti-global homo many times, and then they go full-on global homo when, you know, they're told by their assets to do so, right? It's a good example. Not perfectly compatible with Al Jazeera, but you see what I mean, right? News controlled by Klaus Schwab, not Western globalist news. Yeah, I mean, they're kind of, though. If you're speaking of Al Jazeera, they kind of are. They were the ones that were acceptable to show on TV when we were invading Afghanistan and Iraq. I bet you could find a lot of CIA money if you go back into Al Jazeera and when they started and stuff. They put bomb icons on the map. That's adorable. Oh, yeah. When they're trying to show it in the red and the blue and all this stuff. Oh, these guys are real cute, what they're trying to put. And it's always like the stupidest, like any news that could possibly be a morale bump for Ukraine. Ka-52 helicopter was seized by Ukrainian military. I wonder how many times that's happened the reverse, and we'll never see anything on that. Stuff like that. Let's see. F. Dugan says, yeah, we're going to get into him. I think there is, you know, I have been a little bit too, I guess, pro-Russia. But I think it's hard to explain where I sit on this. Like, to be objective, kind of, one almost has to support what Russia is doing as certainly provoked and justified in many aspects. Okay, so like I'm not against Russia either, but I need to be very clear that I see some very troubling things on the other side as well, on Russia as well, right? We're going to get into that later on. CBC today said today that the Russians putting bombs in corpses, it gets more ridiculous every day. Oh yeah, wouldn't surprise me. CBC is just a cucked out version of BBC anyways. Just disgusting coming out of them. They thought it would drop to the point the ruble was at, They thought it would drop to the point the ruble was at in the early 90s after the collapse of the CCCP. Yeah. Yep. And it hasn't happened. And now they have to now worry about Russia decoupling more and more from the U.S. They don't need them anymore. They have their food. They have their oil. I think the West needs them just as much, if not more, than the other way around. And I think they're going to start feeling that now. We have Germany trying to prepare people. On one hand, they're saying that they will absolutely not breach the contract. The contract is sacred, right, that they had with Russia and the oil. But on the other hand, they're trying to prep people on the news and stuff like that to how they can combat it. Like they can wear a sweater and stuff like that, and long johns, so that they're not cold and stuff like that. I think they're trying to prep people. I don't think they're going to have a choice in the end. Good soldiers are clean shaven. Yes, that is true. We will own nothing and be happy, damn it. Equality means poor for all. These goof fascists wanting oil stopped don't seem to understand no oil, no food, goods, plastic. So much is made from it. Yes, you are correct. Shinona, thanks for coming on. Brutus Albion, I gave you a wrench, right? In any case, I've seen you around the channel before, but welcome to the channel, to the live stream anyways. Who committed the first well-known genocide through the ideology of one nation? I don't know. You should let us know on that. I think that you could look at lots of different places in history, thousands of years of genocide history. You see, if you tilt it, it's different. It's different, you see. Our military can't even make America great again hats. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're doing a crackdown on all that. And you're going to see a weak military come out of it. Swami Mommy. Interesting name. Welcome. As a Jew, we have name for the evildoers. Jews, we call them Erev Rav. It's in the Old Testament. Which part? Welcome to the channel. Have yourself a wrench, and you can pass out links and stuff like that. Thought it was the Amalekites. This might be U.S.'s Suez Canal crisis. U.S. needs to be more strategic. Well, it seems like they're just trying to escalate things as much as possible because it seems like it's all they know how to do. They're now accustomed to believing that they are unstoppable and their ideology is unstoppable, and they just need to accelerate things. But I think that that's not working. It may have indeed been a trap set by Russia. Maybe leave some negligible amount of money in different bank accounts and stuff like that so that the West could seize it, and then they can pull them into this. I don't know how the dollar is going to be able to hold its value if you have Russia now starting to sell their stuff to, say, Pakistan, India, China. Japan was just talking about, let's see if I can find this real quick. Japan-Russia trade. Let's see if I can find that news right away. This was 5 days ago that they were talking about to ban Russia-bound exports of luxury cars. But I was just reading something where they were saying Japan is not going to be scaling back much. Yeah, all they can talk about is cars. That's all they can talk about. And no news on the DuckDuckGo, which is paused at this point. Let's see if I can find it real quick on maybe Search Brave. Japan-Russia trade, although Brave isn't much better. Let's see what they say. Japan to raise Russia tariffs, drop preferentials trade status, but I don't think that means much in the long run of things, to be honest. That's the best they can do. Yeah, I don't think that this is going to hold. Give it a year or so. Japan knows what USA can do, and they're not very trustworthy. And so anyways, getting back to it, you have a new trading bloc that's, well, it's not really new. The BRICS is the foundation of it. You have Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And I think a lot of these guys are now starting to realize that they can't depend on the West, not with their system, that they can just cancel whomever they want. And I think they're going to start looking to be more independent from them. I think we're starting to see it now. China needs a lot of oil. They need a lot of coal. And guess what? That's Russia's base. That's Russia's base. And if they get Donbass, there's lots of coal there, lots of steel there as well. They can supply China for days, along with some food as well. I don't think they could completely cover China's food deficit. But if you take a look at Ukraine, well, let's put Ukraine out of it, but Russia and Kazakhstan alone is a huge share of the wheat market in the world, along with other grains and stuff like that. They could supply China for that. You have India that has huge demands for energy as well as precious metals and strategic metals as well. I think that what's going to happen here now at this point is that the petrodollar isn't going to last much longer. It's not just me saying that either. I'm basically copy pasting from what I've been looking at. The presumption that the petrodollar is going to last forever, I think, is fading much faster than what people have thought it was because of this. And now we're going to start seeing the debts come home to roost of the USA. And I think these sanctions were supposed to hurt so much in the short term, or just right off the hop, and they've barely made a dent. They've barely made a dent. They made a dent for like a week, and it came back. A couple of weeks. So we'll have to take a look, see what happens here, because there are some central moves that the Kremlin have been doing to retain its value and stuff like that at the moment. So we'll see how it lasts over time. But this does not seem to be what they wanted for Russia. Not at all. Not at all. What else do we got here, folks? India's been making some big moves lately. Yeah, and they basically told U.S. to go F itself, that they're not going to be partaking in the same stuff. Zulu F's. Hello, folks. Welcome to the channel. Have yourself a wrench. Reaction of the U.S. and its puppets made it look like Russia is the underdog in this fight. Yeah, well, I mean, are they not? Are they not? I think that Russia is looking at how NATO is expanding, and that if they fight NATO head on, that they would indeed be the underdog in an outright hot war. So I guess in some sense they kind of are. They kind of are, but it looks like they're starting to outmaneuver the West. Let's see. Russian news stations are heavily fined for reporting fake news. It has been legal without fines in the U.S. since the early 90s after FCC versus Fox. Yes. And then you also have, what is this called? Smith-Munt. What did they call it? It's like a revision of the Smith-Munt. Modernization. That's the word I was looking for. If you look into the Smith-Munt Act, this is what protected the U.S. citizens from being psyoped. And then Obama, thanks Obama, does a Modernization Act of it. And basically legalizes psychological operations against its people. Removes the protection for Americans. It removes oversight from the people who want to put out this information. There are no checks and balances. No one knows if the information is accurate, partially accurate, or entirely false. The monthly magazine The Atlantic echoed those concerns. Well, they're completely paused now. So I guess they're not echoing. Pulled out my I pulled out the power for my microphone. Sorry about that. But anyways, yeah, they are echoing it as well. But yada yada yada. They are dead to the wind, anyways. Mockingbird news. But yeah, this is what they did. This was 2012. Thanks, Obama. You're now allowed to psyop us at anything. Well, I mean, you've seen what's been going on since 2012. When was just for a little example. Hook. I'm just saying. I don't know what happened there. I wasn't there, all right, but it did happen shortly after Smith-Munt Modernization Act. Just saying. I'm just saying. Interesting timing. That's all I'm saying. Okay. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm gonna say. That's probably all I can say. Legalizes the Boston bombing. Yeah, that's something to look into. I know I say this a lot here, but the Boston bombing, very interesting how that happened right outside of MIT. They have their own police force, and Epstein gave them a brand new lab, media lab of all things, actually, that had just finished right before then. At least it's just psyops and no large-scale false flags needed these days. Well, they're committing terrorism on the people. Right, is what they're doing. Right, I don't know about Sandy. I'll take off Sandy Hook just in case, so that they don't give a reason. But they're terrorizing people. Is what they're doing with this Putler stuff and Trump stuff, Trumpler, all this kind of stuff that they're just completely. They're slamming people, barraging people with this kind of nonsense. Not that I am a big supporter of Trump. I'm not. I think he just said the right things to attract the right people, and then, hasn't said a thing about the people who are still in jail after January 6th, even though we're looking at, the likes. Have you guys looked in, by the way, let's get into this. Have you looked into the Ashley Babbitt thing? Did you take a good look at that shooting? Something tells me that has to do with the Smith-Munt Modernization Act as well. All right? Something is very off with that footage. Have you guys seen that before? Look into this, okay? I don't know what I can show here. But Ashley, I forget how to spell her name. I think it was like L-I in the end. But Ashley Babbitt, however that is spelled, okay? Look into it. That shooting, there's something very, very, not up to snuff. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. And then there was a huge, what looked to me AstroTurf campaign on the likes of 4chan and places like that, where it was basically trying to get people to freak out about it. I think it was possibly a way to get people to start rioting in the Congress, which they really did. What was the worst thing that happened to Congress? A couple chairs, a fire extinguisher, and broken glass. And the people who were breaking the broken glass were pretty suspicious in and of themselves and were trying to be stopped. But so Twitwit says he's made numerous statements on the prisoners and Ashley Babbitt. Maybe. That could all be fine and well. But all I saw him do for the major part of 2021 is just push the vaccine. Right? I didn't see him go on a major campaign and go from place to place to say that these people should be let out. Right? All I saw was that on Jan 6, he said that he was going to be walking up the steps with them. Right? Then he disappears. He shuts up about it for months. Maybe he's made a few statements. But then when he comes back, his big campaign is for the vaccine. I don't trust that, okay? Certainly don't. There are known accidents in this shizzle show. Yeah. Yes, that Ashley Babbitt footage is super weird. Yes, it is indeed. All the main actors on Jan 6 are bad actors. I agree with you. Never forget. Welcome to the channel. Got ye. Nixon. Ashley Babbitt, Little White Rabbit in Wonderland. Yeah, it even sounds like it, doesn't it? Twitwit once again pushes back and says he says it at every rally. I haven't been following him that much. I have not been following his rallies enough to know. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think that there's a whole lot more that he could be doing. Talk is cheap. Talk is cheap. Was it a coincidence that a black cop shot Ashley Babbitt? I wonder, yeah. And then they blame a cop having a heart attack after on the riot, or whatever they want to call it. The insurrection, is that what they call it all the time? Yeah. Hits too many strings? Exactly. Yeah, it's it reeks of psyop, that's for sure. The best revenge against your TDS pro-vax relatives is to call it the Trump jab. Yeah, that Trump is the father of the vaccines, as he calls it. Yeah. All right. Should we get into Dugan now? I kind of want to... Yeah, I tell you what. Give me a moment. I know that I'm taking a break a little bit early, but we need to get into Alexander Dugan, okay? This is something that's really important. I have not seen enough people talk about it, except for people that are in my opinion, slyly pushing him. And there's a whole range, a lot of people call this guy the brain of Putin. I don't necessarily think he's that embedded, but I think that the ideology that he speaks of, I think it does have a lot more influence than what many people are saying it does, okay? So give me one moment. I just need to fill my water bottle. And we're going to get into them. Let's see what I can find real quick there for you. I'll be right back. Stick around. Oh, I know what I got. He's actually the one that's behind Novorussia as well. Just real quick. Novorussia. Or anyways, he's like the one that was like really talking about the Novorussia, and as you can see, this cross. So just for that break in between. Hold on. Oh, not that one. I'll be right back.
Дали на юге Алексеев, дали на юге Алексеев, хочу назад. Alexei, ура! Ура! Что мои праведники умереть, Алексей, вдали, вдали, вдали на юге, Алексей, вдали, вдали, вдали на юге, Алексей, девники сики, я родился морозным утром, родился огни, огни, огни.